Greenhouse gas concentrations, global sea levels, and ocean heat content reached all-time highs in 2021.
Mike Gooding spoke to a local expert about NOAA's annual State of the Climate report.
A coalition of more than 500 scientists from 60 countries painted an alarming portrait of the toll that Mother Nature is taking upon our planet. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration's new State of the Climate report says we continue to see more compelling scientific evidence that climate change has global impacts and shows no sign of slowing. The report says when the oceans heat up, the polar ice caps melt and sea levels rise. Any flooding that results from a rise in sea level could dramatically impact coastal areas.
Before that, we had to go back to 2017 when we hit a high of 110. And then prior to that, again, nothing in the 110s. It was all about 105 to 109. In that deeper color red that are going to be under the excessive heat watch. That'll start up on...
Hey Doomers, happy September 1st, 2022. Hope you're still riding along, paying your bills, doing the good consumer thing to do. I wanted to get into a few web pages today which were published mostly today and or within the past few days. But first I just wanted to give a little life update. Rather than drag you through all the gory details, the short version is cohabitating with another individual's children is can be difficult, especially when there are not adequate principles and values set in place. What I mean is I'm at an age in my life where I won't tolerate certain things. I just won't. Call it self-respect, call it principles, whatever you want to say. I just won't put up with it. And I'm looking out for my best interests, which is to live in a safe space with like-minded people. So upon request of my last couple of videos or putting feeler out there, it turns out I decided to move up to Ohio, which is a good thing, to live with a doomer up there. I generally tend to cohabitate with men much better, given that there's some sort of a rules and ethics that's already predefined, set in place. You know, we understand each other. You know, cleanliness, respect, all those sorts of things, living with somebody. But when you throw women and children in the picture, you know, seemingly respect can just get thrown out the window. Fun little summer excursion here. And I'm glad that I'm moving away. Arkansas, let's just be real, is the fourth worst state. It's just run down. Right, you see the videos that I produce on it, guys. It's run down and poverty stricken. It's like most of Arkansas, Fayetteville and Northwest Arkansas is pretty in the Ozarks, but most of Arkansas is a trash can, not worth living. Just wanted to fill you guys in. Life is difficult. That's no surprise, but with wit and guts, being able to bounce from the bottom is really a sign of strength. And again, I am glad to be moving Arkansas, moving north, because the temperature graphs I've seen recently put Arkansas at or near wet bulb temperatures by 2050, which means sooner. It just, the heat waves, it's unreal. You know, I know it's hot everywhere, but like in the south, in the southwest, it just gets hotter and hotter every year. And I don't know how we're going to take another couple summers of 110 degrees. Not to say that Ohio's any safer, but at least I'm closer to some spaces that are safer, like anywhere down south. Again, I don't want to get into it. So let's just get into it. Let's get into a few pages. Of course, there's paywalls and stuff like that. We could be happy to know that the G20 environmental officials are meeting in Bali, you know, flying across the world on Wednesday at an Indonesia resort to talk climate action and on war. We're actually in a climate crisis position. Nurbaya said, we must work faster to bring global temperatures down. Blah, blah, blah. That's great. Words, blah, blah. But here's the truth. Most major carbon capture and storage projects, as is just published, haven't met targets, and they're still not meeting targets. Majority of 13 flagship schemes worldwide representing 55% of carbon capture have either failed or entirely not captured much less CO2 than expected. And this is another paywall. I'm not going to sign up, but I think the headline pretty much says what it is. But on a bright note, as long as the temperatures keep rising, we can supplement our frenzy with building more construction, endless growth. Greenland's melting glaciers spew a complicated treasure of sand. So the meltwater from the island's ice sheet is loaded with the right kind of concrete production. Basically, the short version, I just read this, the short version is just like the glaciers are melting and it's spewing up sand. And unlike sand from the desert, which is round like marbles, try to build a building out of marbles, the sand here is granular and perfect for construction. This one just popped up from Nature. Moving on. Australia's epic wildfires expanded ozone hole and cranked up global heat. Smoke from unprecedented 2020 fires increased temperature in stratosphere by 3°C in some places. Wow. Over Australia, and globally in the lower stratosphere rose by 0.7 degrees. The effect, quote, was equivalent to the type of impact we see from a moderate volcanic eruption. What we're discovering about the scale of these fires is remarkable. Yeah, well, that isn't any surprise, right? Let's push over to the Atlantic. The homeowner's sunshine problem. My friend here in town talked about this with me one of the first times we met. We have to paint our roofs white. Yeah, folks, you think we're doing that? Nope. Not doing that. Connecticut public schools must now teach about climate change. A new state law behind the curriculum requirement. Wow. Way to traumatize them early, huh? And then this one, I'm just going to read the highlights of it. This is from USA Today. 2021's climate extremes show global warming has no sign of slowing. I'm going to read the State of the Climate Report concluded 2021. It was released yesterday. The data presented in this report is clear. We continue to see more compelling scientific evidence that climate change has global impacts and no sign of slowing, said Rick Spinrad, the administrator of NOAA, and it's prepared by NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Information. Spinrad said the climate crisis is not a future threat, but something we must face today. He and Paul Higgins, Associate Director of American Meteorological Society, said the world should use the report to become more resilient to climate change. Yeah, because we'll just keep adapting, right? Guys, humans are highly adaptable, right? But not our food supply, not our fresh water supply. The Earth's warming trend for the 10th consecutive year. The mean sea level set a new record high. Global surface temperatures were about 0.5 degrees above the 1991 to 2020 average. The last 7 years have been the warmest on record. Sea levels are 3.8 inches higher than 1993 average. That's a lot. 0.2 of an inch increase over 2010. China and New Zealand saw their warmest years on record. Kyoto, Japan, native cherry species tree blooms were the earliest on record, dating back to, that says 801, but I think that's 1801? I don't know. Europe saw its second hottest summer on record, setting a new high temperature of 119.8 degrees in Sicily. In Spain, a new record in January when the temperature in some crazy place in Spain dropped minus 29.4 degrees. Polar regions suffered. Glaciers continue melting for the 34th year in a row. I'm almost 34. Wow. Just on the downward trajectory. In June 2021, Canada's Northwest Territories set an all-time high of 103.8 degrees. And Greenland ice sheet recorded its first rainfall since record-keeping began 33 years ago. It used to be too cold on the top of the ice sheet for it to rain, but guess what? It's raining. Nearly a third of the world's land area saw drought conditions in August 2021. That's no good. East Africa saw the lowest ever rainfall along the equator. threatening food security for 20 million people. China had Zhengzhou in China, 7.9 inches of rainfall in a single hour on July 20th. In Italy, it got 29 inches in just 12 hours. Yes, you guessed it, carbon dioxide and methane rose to new record highs. Carbon dioxide reached an annual concentration of 414, up 2.6 parts over 2020. Business as usual. That's the 5th highest growth rate since monitoring began in 1958. Methane continued its upward trend, 18 parts per billion, and nitrous oxide also hit 334.3 per billion, the third highest level since 2001. Trending in the wrong direction, folks. The wrong direction. Again, I'm just going to state this for the record. Could you feel the temperature extremes even in the past 3 or 4 years? Could you feel the growth of nearly every extreme weather event in heat temperature? Again, extrapolate out 3 or 4 years from now, and then another 3 or 4 years. Yeah, it's just going to be so, as one of my other subscribers said, just going to be so chaotic, very chaotic. And then last but not least, someone mentioned that I made a comment saying the presidential envoy for climate said John Kerry said we have 9 years left. Then someone said, well, there's never been a climate envoy before. Technically, the term envoy, but there was a climate czar that used to be informally described as his position. Carol Browner, who was the director of the now defunct White House Office of Energy and Climate Change Policy from 2009 to 2011. And then before that, it had just been the presidents representing us, like Obama, and that's really all I can think of. So technically, no, there hasn't been an envoy before who has said that there's 9 years left. But for a new envoy to come along and say that we have 9 years left to avert the worst of this crisis is a big statement. Should not be taken lightly. All right, guys. State of the climate and personal affairs. I appreciate all of your support. Life is just a series of trials and errors, different doors you pass through. One closes, one opens. 8 billion people on the planet. Can you even count to 100 million? I sure can't. All right, I appreciate all of you guys' support. Thanks for staying subscribed, and I'll get to 999 this year or next. It's a done deal. All right, talk to you later.